Good morning, QE guitar players. Next week we're going to be moving into the 1980s, and our featured guitar player is The Edge from U2, probably one of the most influential guitar players of the 1980s. He was influential probably because he was in a band where he was the only guitar player, and normally when you have a trio, guitar, bass, drums, guitar player has to be really busy and loud. You know, if you think about bands like the Who or the Jam, or Cream or Led Zeppelin, guitar players tend to have massive stacks of Marshall amps, lots of overdrive, lots of big kind of power chords, lots of screaming guitar solos. And The Edge was the opposite of all that, really. Basically, he sort of tried and create ambience rather than kind of power in his kind of playing, and he had a special tool that was at his disposal, which I'll demonstrate in a minute. So we're going to be doing this song, Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. Guitar players in the group with the female singers will be doing it in the key of C. We only need 3 chords, C, F and G, or C, F and G. And the guitar players in the group with the lads singing will be in the key of A, D and E. And the song is Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, which is basically a bit like a 12-bar blues, except it's a 24-bar blues, just some of the measures get repeated, but essentially you'll know the structure just by listening to the record. Just a word of warning, if you're playing along with the record, it's a bit hard because it was recorded in the key of D, but then through kind of studio kind of trickery, i.e. probably slowing down the master tracks, it's sort of in the key of C sharp, so it's not quite in the key of C sharp, not quite in the key of D. And the other confusion is if you play along with a live version, it might be in the key of B because Bono's voice, like most blokes, drops as they get older. So where he sung it in the studio in the key of D, he now sings it in the key of B. And to make it even more confusion, Edge usually plays with a capo on the 2nd fret, so it looks like he's sort of playing A chords and things. So we're going to work on a version of the song that doesn't require a capo, and it just requires some simple arpeggios basically. So rather than play a normal sort of C chord or a bar or a power chord, Edge uses these arpeggio chords. He's not, in interviews he talks about how sometimes he deliberately avoids using the 3rd of the chord. That's the 3rd there, in this case a major, minor, and because he likes the ambiguity of chords that kind of could be major or minor, and instead he prefers sort of suspensions and funny arpeggiated chords. So the main chord we need in the key of C is this one. We're going to put our first finger's going to go on the D string on fret 10, and we're going to use our ring finger and small finger on fret 12 to create what looks like a mini power chord, and it sounds a bit like this. It's our root, our 5th, and this is our major 7th. And he plays a simple arpeggio which sounds a bit like this. Okay. Sounds a little bit kind of weak and not very interesting, but this is where we put the magic kind of tool. In the 80s, guitar players started more use of delay pedals. Some were kind of analog delay pedals, had a bit of tape in, and some were digital delay. And I've got a cheap imitation of it here, so listen to what happens. I hit that note now, and we hear at least 4 of the notes afterwards. And that means every note I arpeggiate now will hear multiple versions of it. It's kind of this continuous wave of notes now. It creates like an ambience. He would also play with quite a lot of reverb on his amp as well. I've just got a dry amp at the minute, so you're not getting the full kind of effect of it, but we'll do that in lessons next week. So the start of the song of the 4 bars of the C. We'll just create an arpeggio using those 3 notes and a simple strum pattern. If you listen to it without the delay, basically what I'm playing. Most of it on the D and G string, occasionally just hitting the B string to get that major 7th note. Okay. When the chords move up or move down to an F chord, okay, Edge just keeps those 2 notes sounding. Actually sounds a bit like this with the root note in. we we don't have to kind of play the root, we can just hang them in there. There's going to be a second and third guitar player who are voicing the regular chords, so when, as lead guitar players, this is the lead guitar part, we're not obliged to play the root note. Okay. When we move to the G, still haven't found what I'm looking for, the hook line of the chorus, we're going to play variations of G and F, and these are suspended seconds, and basically the G is going to be D and G string on fret 12. I'm going to use our first finger to play fret 10 of the B string. It creates this ambiguous suspended second. It's a little bit like Ticket to Ride. It's that same sort of suspension we had last week. So here's the G. Here's the F. And then for the only time we're going to resolve it and go to the C chord where we have the third in. Okay, with the delay on, it sounds like this. Okay, and I'm back to a regular sort of C chord there. It's basically a bar chord, but I'm playing just the top half of it. It's a bit like an F shape. Just been playing with those notes on, and this finger's free, so we can just have it resting if you want behind on fret 9, and that creates a suspended fourth, sus4, normal C. So we have this playing. Every time we have a C chord in the structure, then we keep this. Up to the F for a little while in the verse, and then in the chorus, still haven't found what I'm looking for. And if you want, you can put a little hammer on. When you're using digital delay, you have to take care a little bit to set it up so that the delay is roughly the tempo of the song. If you listen, 2 and 3 and 4 and that's sort of like eighth notes. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and it's about 120 BPM or something like that. And it means that the delay is sort of roughly in time with the music as well and helps create an extra layer of rhythm. We're going to add a guitar solo in our version of the song. No, there's not one as such in the U2 version, and we're going to use the major pentatonic we played, and it's going to sound a bit like this. It's just the melody, the vocal melody played on the guitar. We start on the G string, which is sort of the third of the C chord. Start on the G on fret 9, and I'm creating a mini bar on fret 8 there. You know by now, I'm a big fan of the mini bars, just using our first finger to flatten 2 or 3 strings. Little hammer on. You hear that's the first couple of lines of the melody of the U2 song. Then we're going to go where he sings "Only to be with you." Only to be with you. And then finally, we're going to mirror the vocal by just going, but I still haven't found what I'm looking for. And basically, this is the major scale, starting on fret 5 of the G, but pretty much going down the scale. And the last parts of that are just off the frets 5 and 7 of the D string. The guitar solo together might sound a bit like this. So I've demonstrated everything in the key of C there, If you learn it in C initially, but then if you're in the group which has the male singers, we might try it in C just to see if we can push the voices into that Bono territory, but it's quite high pitched. We're more likely to do it down in the key of A, which means that everything I've just shown you is just going to move down 3 frets. So the main A arpeggio will start with our first finger on the fret 7 of the D string, and our little mini bar to create a major sevenths on the B string of fret 9. We're kind of almost going to reverse that position. They're going to go on fret 9, and our first finger is going to go on fret 7. That'll give us our E chord, give us our D, and I'm on fret. You can see I'm on fret sort of 5 there, playing what looks like an F chord. Still haven't found what I'm looking for. When we do the guitar solo, we can start it from that position. Most of those notes are fret 5 and 7, and most of them are coming off the B string. A little hammer on there, resolving on the G string on fret 6. Then we got the to be with you. Then when we were doing the reggae work last week, you might have used a shape that involves some of these notes. That's basically our major pentatonic. Difference is now we're also putting in this note. The key of C was up here. Sounds slightly low because obviously we're a minor third below. And to play it authentically, it's quite good, sounds good on a Strat. Ideally on a Strat in the position there, which is the sort of out of phase position between these two pickups. It's just a bit thinner and more wiry. We don't need a big loud sound for this, it'll cut through because of that sort of tonal frequency of the Strat there. We'll probably also have another electric guitar playing the power chords with a big beefy tone on one of the Gibsons or a semi-acoustic like that Epiphone behind me perhaps as well. So that's it. Do a bit of prep before Tuesday's lesson if you can please, and hope you enjoy the song. Take care.